It is the day before Thanksgiving, 9:45 in the morning. I'm at Summit, New Jersey. I just got fuel and I'm going to go on Interstate 78 to Bedminster, New Jersey. And let's see what happens on this drive. Right now on the radio it'll be the BBC News, so I'll put that on just to see what nonsense is going on in the world.
Money to save lives, it's worth it.
What do you say to the criticism that the United Nations made a mistake in accepting General Burhan as the de facto authority, which means that in effect you can't do anything unless he gives you permission?
General Burhan and the authorities control those checkpoints. They control the system of permits and access. And so if we want to go into those areas, we need to deal with them. And so we've got a constructive conversation going. We've got a real dialogue. And if that saves lives, then it's worth it.
And that was Tom Fletcher, the UN's humanitarian chief, talking there to BBC's Doucette.
I think the right green light that I just drove through is broken. I didn't see the right green arrow, but there was no red light for right green, for right turn. So I think that light's out. I may have to C-click fix that later. When I come home from work, I will look into that.
Long-standing free trade agreement. Just to put this in context, more than 3/4 of Canadian exports go to the US. Mr. Trump says he's planning the move in order to force Canada to do more to combat the flow of undocumented migrants and illegal drugs into the US. Doug Ford is Premier of Ontario, Canada's most populous province. News House Tim Franks asked him what effect he thought these tariffs might have.
These tariffs are going to hurt both countries. They're going to hurt them drastically, the US and Canada and Ontario. Ontario alone, which is our province, largest province, does approximately $500 billion of two-way trade. 9 million Americans wake up every single day to produce products for Ontario alone. Canada does $1.3 trillion of two-way trade, no matter if it's oil being shipped down or other energy that's being shipped down. That's 60% of what they take in on the energy file, but also the auto sector as well. We're so tied in, and 17 states in the U.S. we're their number 1 destination. As I say, the number 1 export area is Ontario, and number 2 to 11 others. So I never hate retaliating, but if he does put these tariffs on, we will retaliate. We will put tariffs on every box of cereal, every cracker, anything that gets shipped across. And I promise you, it will hurt the U.S., and I don't want that. Sure. I want to be collaborative. I want to cooperate with them, and let's have a fair trade and free trade.
I guess, in a sense, you setting out those numbers, particularly in terms of importance, obviously, of the US as a market for Canadian exports, just sort of makes Donald Trump's case for him, though, doesn't it? That actually, this is a very potent threat, and he has made it very clear what he wants. And actually, in contrast to what he's had to say, for example, about trade deficits elsewhere with places like China, it's not about trade, it's about policing the border, and he says you need to do more.
Well, you know something, we have a tremendous amount of illegals coming up through the U.S. into the Canadian borders and crossing there. Make no mistake about it. In our federal government, tighten up our borders 100%. But he put us in the same bucket as Mexico, that have over 2.1 million people coming in the southern border, compared to roughly 195,000 people coming from Canada into the U.S. And we
If you are more sauced than a cranberry, stay off the road and something. Yeah, great. Thanks for that.
Fentanyl and other hard drugs are coming up from Mexico into California and into Canada at certain ports. Yeah. So we need to work together with the law enforcement on both sides of the border. But you can't, you just can't use that as an excuse to slap 25% tariffs on one of your closest allies. I always say UK, Canada, the United States have stood shoulder to shoulder in many conflicts around the world, all the way back to World War I. And you just don't slap that family member in the face.
Yeah, well, you may say that, but it sounds as if that's precisely what he's willing to do. And the US officials are saying that, lots more people have come over that border from Canada in the last 12 months than in I think, the previous 17 years combined, some figure like that. So,
that was a Tesla S, I think a very high-end model, stuck at the side of the road with its bonnet up. Obviously there's not a lot under the bonnet that can be tiddled with because there's just the frunk in there. So who knows what's happening.
Our Royal Canadian Mounted Police, they need to put more resources there. I don't control the border. I wish I did, because you wouldn't be able to get a mouse through that border if we were in control of our border.
And that was Doug Ford, who's Premier of Ontario, Canada's most populous province, talking there to my colleague Tim Franks. You're listening to News Hour on the BBC.
Distribution of BBC NewsHour in the U.S. is supported by Storyworth. Each week, Storyworth emails a loved one a question about their life. After a year, they'll publish family memories into a bound book to keep forever. Learn more at Storyworth.com. And the Financial Times, the pink newspaper whose journalism is designed to encourage fearless thinking on American political and business news. There's more at FT.com.
I did some quick mental tabulations to see if a wonky liver was a deal breaker. Yeah, no, it wasn't. So I leaned in to kiss him, but then I had a really dark thought, and I said, hey, you're not dating me for my liver, are you? Join us next time for stories off service, in service, and by servers. That's the Moth Radio Hour from PRX. Tonight at 9 on 93.9 FM WNYC.
With the enhanced WNYC app, you can do it all. Listen to WNYC Radio Live, catch up on podcasts, and read stories from Gothamist and NPR. Download the WNYC app at WNYC.org/app.
WNYC supporters include Carnegie Hall, presenting cello and piano sibling duo Sheku and Isata Kanamesa, in a program featuring works by Fauré, Poulenc, Mendelssohn, and Natalie Plauda, December 15th. Tickets at carnegiehall.org.
Up next, it's the Brian Layer Show on WNYC. Hear the arguments the defense and prosecution have made in Daniel Penny's subway chokehold trial, plus the series celebrating WNYC's centennial. 100 years of 100 Things continues with the history of how Americans' views on Thanksgiving have changed. Those conversations more at 10 on WNYC. 47 with sunshine right now today, increasing clouds and 51, rain tomorrow and a high of 48.
This is James Menendez with News. Abdel Fattah is Egypt's best-known political prisoner. A blogger and outspoken pro-democracy activist, he's been in prison for most of the past decade. His latest spell began in 2019. After 2 years in detention, he was convicted of spreading false news after sharing a fake... The Egyptian authorities refused to cap the more than 2 years been held in pre-trial detention as part of his sentence. So, he remains in jail for at least another 2 years. Well, that decision prompted his British-born mother to go on hunger strike. She hasn't eaten for nearly 2 months now. Today, Layla Swaif has been meeting the British Foreign Secretary David Lammy to discuss Allah's case. He has joint British and Egyptian citizenship. And Mr. Lammy, before he came into government, was a vocal supporter of the family. I've been speaking to Layla Swaif. So how was the meeting?
It was a bit better than I expected. I mean, I was very skeptical, but Mr. Lammy is now starting to listen to us. I hope we get some action soon, because after all, my body has given us like a break by being resilient for so long, but we are a bit of time.
Did he give you any specific assurances about what action the British government is taking or will take to try to secure Allah's release?
Not quite. He did give us assurances about his commitment to the case, but we still have to see more positive, concrete action.
And what exactly would you like the British government to do?
Well, we have a number of asks. We have asked him to make the potential UK-Egypt trade summit, which the Prime Minister of Egypt is very keen to have, conditional on our release. As I pointed out, we're not asking great things because I have actually finished this sentence. It's not like we're asking for him to be released before time or anything. So really, it should be doable.
The UK has no consular access to Allah at the moment, despite him holding a British passport. I mean, is there any progress on that, for example?
We haven't been told that there's progress, but we're hoping to see progress on that. I asked Mr. Lamb specifically to do something about that. Hoping is maybe too strong word. I wish to see progress on that during the coming days or weeks or something.
And the fact that Britain doesn't have consular access, does that mean it's been almost impossible to find out how Allah is at the moment?
No, not quite, because we have access to Allah as a family, but it just means that if there's something bad going on, the Egyptian government can just deny it and claim that we're lying.
Right. So how is he? How is he?
He's pretty dark. The last time I saw him was on the 18th of November, which was actually his 43rd birthday. So he was pretty down. He was very clear about not wanting to celebrate yet another birthday in jail. And I think he didn't feel like he was ever going to be let out. I'm seeing him again next Saturday. I'm flying back to Egypt on Friday because his regular monthly visit is on Saturday. I hope to be able to make him a little bit less down, partly because of my meeting with Mr. Lamy and how frank and direct it was, but mainly because of all the media attention and all the support I got from rich MPs and so on.
And also, how are you? How are you holding up?
I'm still holding up. I'm still functioning semi-normally. It's the phase where your body burns up extra fat. That's a phase of hunger strikes, which can be quite long. As I said, we're all having, me and Mr. Lamy and even the Egyptian authorities are all having a lucky break that I'm holding up so long, but we really should get on with this before I collapse. Personally, I don't want to collapse, and they're going to have a very embarrassing situation on their hands if I do collapse, and it would then be probably irreversible.
Indeed. I mean, what does Allah think about what you're doing?
He accepts it. He knows me. He knows I don't change my mind when I set my mind in a certain direction. So basically, he accepts it because he knows me.
But, I mean, presumably he wouldn't want you to die trying to push his case before the British government, would he?
No, he wouldn't want me to die. He's very worried about me. But, you know, we both know the Egyptian regime. We know that this regime always expects one to back down, and that if you back down, they sort of run all over you. So he wouldn't want that happening to me either. He wouldn't want I suppose it's theatrical saying this, but he wouldn't want my spirit to be broken.
No, I'm sure. I mean, do you hold on to the hope that you will live to see your son freed?
I have to hold on to that hope. I keep telling myself that yes, it will happen. And, well, I suppose if it doesn't happen, I'm gonna go draw now here. I don't have to worry about it.
Why do you think the Egyptians are so determined to keep your son in jail? I mean, it's been almost 10 years in total, isn't it?
Partly because it is Allah, it's so prominent and so on, but also because they don't need to let anyone out. I mean, I've got a friend who is a university professor. He was a leading Muslim Brotherhood person, but he was a very good university professor, and he was very liberal informed. He was very liberal, actually, by any measures, and he was found innocent since 2018, and he's still in jail. If they can get away with it, they don't want to let anyone out.
And so why do you think they will possibly back down over a last case and look at what you're doing and say, okay, well, this has gone too far? Why do you think they would do that?
Mainly, if British are still to do it firmly enough, because they don't really want to upset the apple cart with the British. I mean, they need the British and they need their alignment with the West. And also because my present hunger strike is generating a lot of sympathy in Egypt, and it's, you know, putting indirect pressure, maybe it is putting pressure on them.
So you do strongly believe that Britain does have leverage over Egypt, and if they exert that leverage, it will work?
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
That was Leila Swain, the mother of Alaa Abdel, speaking to me a little just after that meeting with Britain's Foreign Secretary. And that is it for this edition of News from me and the rest of the team. Thanks so much for listening. Until the next time, bye-bye.
This is WNYC FM, HD, and AM New York.
It's the Brian Lehrer Show on WNYC. Good morning, everyone. Happy day before Thanksgiving. Don't forget the weather is supposed to be wet tomorrow. Rain and wind around New York City. Maybe snow if you're heading north, depending where the snow line turns out to be. So make your travel plans accordingly. Make sure you're taking safety into account. And it may not be a great day to watch the parade in person. Why couldn't the draft take a break until just one day later, right? Later in the show, we'll take your calls with one thing you're...
That bike rack on the Tesla ahead is experiencing a fair amount of torsion about the axis of the hitch. As the Tesla goes around corners, you can see the bike's going to sway to the left and then sway to the right. I assume it's strong enough and that it's going to hold, but it does look a little disconcerting.
Has been in the courtroom for all of it, and she'll be here. But we'll start with the most controversial Trump nominee now, but Matt Gaetz has withdrawn for Attorney General. Pete Hegseth, President-elect Trump's nominee for Defense Secretary, has mostly been the source of controversy because of his position that women should be removed from combat roles in the military, and for the 2017 sexual assault allegation against him that resulted in a police report and an out-of-court settlement with his accuser that included a non-disclosure agreement as he was working as a public personality, a Fox News host. But there's more to the concerns about Pete Hegseth's fitness for the job that isn't getting as much press, and those are some of the things I want to talk about. For the National Guard, Hegseth was scheduled to be on duty for the Biden inauguration in 2021. Did you know this? But his superiors removed him because of concerns that he could be an insider threat. He's acknowledged this. One could not acknowledge that he was a threat, acknowledge that he was removed over that concern. One cause for that concern was a tattoo that he has that's often associated with white supremacist roots, a tattoo known as Deus Vult. Related, perhaps, Hegseth wrote in one of his books that all the diversity recruiting messages for the military made white kids feel like they're not wanted. He wrote, quote, "America's white sons and daughters are walking away from the military, and who can blame them?" So true or not on the facts, Hegseth sees diversity efforts as victimizing whites, not just trying to have the military seem welcoming and equitable to all Americans. Maybe in a confirmation hearing, the Senate will wind up debating that. I actually looked that up this morning, by the way, because I think these numbers are knowable facts. And according to the Defense Department's own demographics report for 2022, which was the most recent year I could find, 2022, pretty recent, 69% of U.S. service members are white, 69%. According to the 2020 census, just 62%
of all Americans identify as white, as opposed to something other than white or mixed race. So it seems like white Americans are overrepresented in the military, not walking away, comparing census figures to military, the Pentagon's own demographics. You can look it up. And a story in The Guardian last week was headlined, Trump's Pentagon pick, Hegseth, wrote of U.S. military taking sides in civil war. So there's a lot to discuss about Pete Hegseth, and with us for that today is Abigail Hauslohner, Washington Post national security reporter focused on Congress.
Okay, we're now more or less in Bedminster, and I'm going to go in this corporate building up here, and I'm going to get a badge swipe, which apparently validates my existence as an employee over and above any work I might do today. And of course that was the entire point of this drive. And then I'm going to maybe emulate work to some reasonable degree of completeness, and at some point wander off later. I intensely dislike this intersection because it's incredibly dangerous. And I'm going to argue that no corporate manager should allow an employee in the building that has just driven through bad or dangerous traffic, because you're essentially allowing stressed out and angry people access to your core systems, which is a stupid idea. What on earth is going on here? Okay. Here we are, one of my favourite spots.